Few figures in American history shine brighter with courage and determination than Harriet Tubman. Born into the brutal grip of slavery, she broke free not just for herself, but to lead hundreds others to freedom, risking her life time and time again. Harriet's story is one of unbreakable spirit, fierce faith, and relentless resistance against oppression. Harriet was born into slavery in the early 1820s on a plantation in Dorchester County, Maryland. Named Araminta, or Minty at birth, she was one of 9 children. Her mother, Harriet Green, worked as the cook on the plantation owned by Mary Pattison Broadus, while her father, Ben Ross, managed the timber business on a nearby plantation. Rit fought hard to keep her family together. But when Mary Broadus' son Edward sold the 2 older girls, the family was torn apart forever. Later, when her youngest son was threatened with sale to a trader in Georgia, Rit bravely hid him for a month, enlisting help from other slaves and free blacks. She fiercely warned anyone trying to take him away, forcing Broadus to back down. These acts of defiance shaped Harriet's own unyielding belief in resistance. From an early age, Harriet cared for her younger siblings, while her mother worked in the big house. By the age of 5 or 6, Mrs. Broadus hired her out as a general cleaner and nursemaid to the local Cook family. Life was harsh. Mrs. Cook often beat Harriet for being too slow with chores. Harriet also checked muskrat traps in nearby marshes. The swampy conditions once made her so ill she was sent home to recover. Thankfully, her mother was a renowned healer who nursed her back to health. Later, Harriet was sent to work as a nursemaid for a woman known as Miss Susan, another painful chapter. She was whipped whenever the baby she cared for woke and cried. On one brutal morning, Harriet received 5 beatings before breakfast. To protect herself, she began wearing extra layers and even ran away for a week. In her early teens, Harriet suffered a severe head injury when an overseer threw a metal weight, aiming for another slave attempting to escape. The blow fractured her skull and went untreated for days. For the rest of her life, she battled excruciating headaches, seizures, and sudden narcoleptic episodes. This injury also sparked visions and vivid dreams, which Harriet believed were messages from God. Though illiterate, she was taught Bible stories by her mother. She favored the Old Testament's stories of liberation over the New Testament's calls for obedience. When Harriet's father, Ben, turned 45, he was granted his freedom, promised by his owner, Andrew Thompson. Years later, Ben hired a lawyer to investigate his wife Rit's status. Though she'd been promised freedom by Mrs. Broadus' father, that promise had never been honored. Legal battles for freedom were nearly impossible for slaves to win. In 1844, Harriet married John Tubman, a free black man, legally changing her name from Araminta. Their marriage was complicated by her slave status by law. Any children would remain property. In 1849, Edward Broadus tried to sell Harriet due to her poor health but failed. Harriet prayed for Broadus's death, though she later regretted it. With Broadus's passing, the threat of sale loomed larger. Harriet refused to wait. On September 17, 1849, she attempted to escape with her brothers Henry and Ben. All 3 were loaned to a nearby plantation, so their absence went unnoticed at first. A $100 reward, roughly $3,100 today, was offered. But days later, all 3 returned, Harriet most reluctantly. Soon after, she escaped permanently via the Underground Railroad, a secret network of abolitionists in the U.S. and Canada who guided slaves to freedom. Traveling mostly by night, Harriet hid in safe houses during the day, avoiding bounty hunters. She navigated using the North Star and verbal instructions from railroad conductors. Safely in Philadelphia, Harriet joined abolitionists like William Still, who tirelessly aided runaway slaves and kept records to reunite families. He helped Harriet bring many family members to safety. In 1850, the Fugitive Slave Law made aiding escapees a crime nationwide. Forcing the railroad to extend into southern Ontario beyond U.S. law, Canada, part of the British Empire, had long abolished slavery. Later that year, Harriet helped her niece Marianne and her children escape a Baltimore auction by having Marianne's free husband secretly bid on them. Once safe, Harriet guided them to Philadelphia. In spring 1851, she returned to Maryland to rescue more family. That fall, she came back to find her husband John had remarried and refused to leave. Undeterred, Harriet helped others escape. With the fugitive slave law in effect, many escapees fled to Canada. By December 1851, Harriet had helped at least 11 people cross into southern Ontario. She may have met Frederick Douglass around this time, sparking a friendship grounded in mutual respect. For much of the decade before the Civil War, Harriet used St. Catharines, Ontario, as a base for the Underground Railroad. Over 11 years, she returned frequently to Maryland and led roughly 300 people to freedom, including many family members. Known as Moses, after the Old Testament liberator, Harriet planned her trips carefully. Traveling in fall and winter to use long nights and cold weather as cover, she started journeys on Saturday nights, so reward notices wouldn't appear until Monday. She disguised herself and carried a gun not just for protection, but to encourage those wavering on the escape. Harriet credited her deep faith for strength. She believed her visions guided her through dangerous terrain, evading dogs and slave hunters. Proudly, she claimed never to have lost a single passenger. She began speaking publicly against slavery and met abolitionist John Brown, whom she hailed as a martyr after his failed raid on Harper's Ferry. When the Civil War began in 1861, Harriet offered her skills to Union forces in South Carolina, nursing soldiers with herbal remedies and working as cook and laundress. She advocated for black Union regiments and criticized Lincoln's initial hesitation on emancipation. Harriet organized a spy network providing vital intelligence to Union forces. In 1863, she became the first woman to lead an armed expedition, the Combahee River Raid, which freed over 700 slaves and destroyed Confederate supplies. After the war, Harriet settled in Auburn, New York. Widowed, she married Nelson Davis, a fellow former slave and war veteran. They adopted a daughter named Gertie. Auburn became a refuge for family and friends. Emancipation brought new struggles: poverty, hunger, homelessness. Harriet's door was always open. She raised funds, selling homegrown produce, pigs, and with donations. Royalties from Sarah Bradford's biography also helped cover costs. Though she served courageously, Harriet never received a military pension. Only after Nelson's 1888 death did she get $8 a month, roughly $770 today. In her late 60s, Harriet spoke out for women's voting rights. Joining suffragettes like Susan B. Anthony and Elizabeth Cady Stanton, she was keynote speaker at the First National Federation of Afro-American Women meeting in 1896. That year, she bought a 25-acre property in Auburn, with help from the African Methodist Episcopal Zion Church, later donating land to found the Harriet Tubman Home for the Aged in 1908. Though her homeland was slow to honor her, Britain's Queen Victoria recognized Harriet's bravery, inviting her to royal birthday celebrations in 1897. Unable to attend, Harriet cherished the Queen's silk shawl and silver medal for life and was buried with the medal. In her final years, Harriet's health declined due to her head injury. She moved into the rest home she founded, living there until her peaceful death on March 10, 1913. Her last words were, "I go to prepare a place for you," believed to be around 91. Her funeral was a grand affair, attended by white and black Americans united in respect and gratitude. Harriet Tubman's legacy is undeniable. She has inspired movies, operas, novels, paintings, and sculptures. An American survey ranked her among the most famous civilians, alongside Betsy Ross and Paul Revere. Plans to place her on the $20 bill were announced in 2016, but remain on hold. Modest to the end, Harriet once said, "It wasn't me, it was the Lord. I always told him, I trust you. I do not know where to go or what to do, but I expect you to lead me," and he always did. Her light continues to shine. Harriet Tubman's story is a powerful reminder of courage, faith, and the unbreakable fight for freedom and justice. If you found her journey as inspiring as I do, please hit the like button and subscribe for more stories that celebrate remarkable people and moments in history. Don't forget to check out the links in the description for books and resources to dive even deeper into Harriet's incredible life.